today talking about balancing. And when, how, and then the why of it is really balancing is definitely more match point specific. So, you know, if you play a lot of just rubber bridge, frankly, there wouldn't be a whole lot of occasion to balance. When you play teams, you will do it on occasion, but a lot less often and with much greater discretion. On the other hand, if you're playing duplicate pair games and you're not balancing on a pretty regular basis, you're going to lose out and you're not going to be as competitive. It really is its own brand of bridge, and you know, Mike Lawrence talks about this, and it's pretty, you know, it's interesting. You know, he says, you know, we do a lot of things at match points that are. So we do a lot of things at match points that are really, they're fundamentally bad bridge, but they're good match points. Just all because of the scoring format. Oh, and one more arrival. We're going to have a legit majority. So let's go ahead and get into some of the ways that you might balance when it might come up. And remember, when we talk about balancing, we are talking about we're talking about acting in the pass out seat. So you are in the position, and it doesn't matter, you know, whether you were the dealer or the responder or the advancer, or it doesn't matter, because it can be any seat. It's just that when the auction comes around and there have been two passes, and you are going to make the critical call as to whether or not this auction comes to an end or continues, you are in the balancing seat. And so there really can be very wide-ranging situations, hands and auctions and all that, where you would act. So let's take just a very simple auction where you are in fourth seat and the dealer opens a club. And it goes pass to you. Now you haven't had a chance to bid yet. So you're unlimited. And your hand could be as strong as, you could have everything in the deck that's not in the one club bidder's hand. Or you could not have a whole lot. And so, you know, we're on auctions like this, we're trying to figure out, not just based on the look of our own hand and the bids that we've heard, but you know, what's going on here? Where are the rest of the points? Does this person have a very strong hand? Maybe they weren't strong, maybe they couldn't open 2-0 or 2 clubs, but this person could have a very good hand, and maybe they're going to do some more bidding too. Or it could be that this person has a minimum opening, and what if your partner actually has a full opener, but didn't have a call over a club? Always keep in mind that that's a possibility, right? What if your partner was going to open a club? Your partner has 13 or 14 points, was going to open a club. They got this unexpected club opening on their right, and now their hand is the wrong shape for a takeout double, and they're not good enough to overcall a no trump. Sometimes we have to pass, and we've talked about that. It's okay. Actually came up twice in the session Tuesday. Twice my partner had opening hands. Both times his right hand opponent opened a suit that he would have opened, and he had nothing to say. So that's going to happen sometimes. But what that leads to is, well, this is part of the reason it becomes so important for you to balance. And I like to say, that there's no reason to do something really unusual, to double with the wrong shape, or overcall a 4-card suit, or do some, there's no reason really to get cute here and make a bid that maybe you shouldn't make in the direct seat if you can count on your partner in the balancing seat to really strain to take action, even if they're pretty light. And so that's why a lot of times we can have, while the person in the balancing seat may very well have a full opening hand, or maybe they have enough to squeak out an overcall and they just bid a heart or a spade, which would be, maybe as few as 8 or 9 points, as it would have been in direct seat. But sometimes, especially, and let's say if we're thinking in terms of a double, for example, if this person opened a club and maybe your partner has a decent hand, but they have club length and they can't double, well, what does that lead to? Well, what it leads to is a greater likelihood that this person over here in the pass-out seat is short in clubs. And when you are short in the opponent's suit, that should be your trigger to, okay, I can act. You can usually act, and if you have the right shape, normally we're talking about shortness in their suit, now a double's going to be in the picture for you, right? And if you have the wrong shape for double, but you're also short in the opponent's suit, then that means you probably have a long suit of your own that you can bid. So that's a very kind of straightforward balancing type position. Something we're not going to talk about a whole lot today, but we'll mention it and at times, and those of you who have been in doubles class before, we spent quite a bit of time on this. We can have a balancing action that we would sometimes call a reopening, like in the case of a double would be the most common. So this is a balancing action. You opened a club, there was a spade overcall, and then 2 passes back to you. Now you have already opened the bidding, so in this case we know that you are not acting light because you've already announced a full opener. But you don't want the auction to end, you don't want to sell out to 1 spade, you want to compete. And so here, and we won't always see it with double, sometimes it's a rebid of your suit, sometimes it's introducing a second suit, but a lot of times we will see a double here, and this double serves a lot of purposes. Again, if you are if you are short in the overcaller's suit, that is usually your first trigger to maybe reopen with a double. And then this ends up serving different purposes. It allows you to compete and not sell out to a spade, but what it also does is it protects your partner over here when maybe they want to penalize. And as we've talked about before, if you do end up penalizing a low-level contract, even though it's not that common, the way it's going to happen is that you are going to make a double intended as takeout, and your partner is going to leave it in and turn it into a penalty. Because who knows, maybe they have a big stack of spades and the opponents are in a bad spot. And then sometimes we have situations, and then this is really what I think kind of the classic sort of match point type double that we see, or match point balance. Double's one possibility, but you could bid a suit or do something else there. So you couldn't come up with an overcall of a heart when your right-hand opponent opened a heart, and then that got raised to 2, and now it came back around. And so this is one of those, like if you're playing rubber bridge, or usually if you're playing teams, because of the scoring format, it's just there's too much potential to create a really bad swing if you act here without much of a hand. And so, this is the type of thing that if you played a lot of rubber bridge and then you transitioned into duplicate, you said, well, why would I be bidding here? They didn't want to bid a game. They didn't make a game try. Why would I want to step into this? Give them their 110. Let them play 2 hearts. But when you're playing match points, that is just absolutely losing bridge. And you need to be in this auction with any excuse. But if you don't have a long suit, how do you compete, right? If you had a really long suit, we might have heard from you the first time, right? So, and so sometimes what you have over here is you're short in the opponent's suit, but you can support all the other suits. So you're making sort of a delayed takeout double, right? But you weren't strong enough to get in the first round of bidding. But the funny thing about this kind of auction is that, believe it or not, it is relatively safe to get in now, because if the opponents have found a fit, you have a fit somewhere. And this is one of the distinctions we want to make when you balance. That an auction like this, for example, is very different. And we'll do it. You'll look at another scenario where you and your partner have passed in the first round of bidding. Okay, and now from the other side of the table, but now they're going to stop in 2 clubs. And so, for the person in the pass-out seat, you might balance there. Why is that first hand we look at, where the opponents bid and raise hearts, why is that more attractive for balancing than the auction on the top?
They have a fit.
They may have a fit in the auction on top.
No, the one on the bottom.
Yes, the one on the bottom, they have confirmed a fit because they play 5-card matrix and they opened a heart and got raised. But they have a fit, you have a fit. The auction on the top, now they may have a good club fit, and it could be that responder wanted to look for a spade fit, so they bid their 4-card spade suit, hoping partner could raise spades. It didn't happen, and maybe they have a fairly weak hand, and they say, well, we're not going anywhere, I'm not good enough to look for a game, I just got to pass 2 clubs. But is there any guarantee that 2 clubs is a good spot? Not at all, right? I mean, the person who bid a spade could have a singleton or void. And they're like, well, this isn't going to get any better. Better stop while it's low, right? So you want to be careful. It's not to say that we would never balance up here. We certainly would at times. But you want to be a lot more careful, because here, the idea behind making a balancing bid is, well, I'm not going to sell out to 2 hearts. Your line of thinking is, I'm pretty sure they're going to make 2 hearts. Most of the time they're going to make 2 hearts. Not always, but more often than not, right? Well, if I think they're going to make it, maybe I should bid something. Because if we play 2 spades or 3 clubs or 3 diamonds, as long as we find our fit, we can probably, if we're really lucky, it'll make. We'll catch a friendly distribution and actually make our part score, because the high cards are divided pretty evenly, right? Nobody has an overwhelming balance of power on this auction. And then the second part of that is, and even if it doesn't make, they're probably not going to double us in a part score. We can get out for down 1. If we're not vulnerable, we can get out for down 2. And this is still better than their 110, right? It's all relative with the scoring. And so when you're playing match points, there can be a huge match point difference between -100 and -110. Even though that difference in rubber bridge or in team play is negligible. In team play, if you go, if one table's -100 and the other table's +110, it's a push board, right? And that's why we say, well, why would you assume the risk at teams? Why would you risk going down 200 or 300 or 500 if somebody is able to get in a double? Just not worth it at teams. But at match points, you're going to have a catastrophe every once in a while. And it's no big deal. It's one board. I mean, it may be a big deal in your mind.
Always a big deal.
Denise watched me go for 1,400 here after class one day.
Better him than me, right?
A couple weeks ago. Did I look like I was overly concerned about the result?
No, you were a little annoyed with it.
I was extremely annoyed. It had nothing to do with the result. It had everything to do with my opponents. But, you just have to adopt the mentality that it's one big, because that kind of result at teams, that is going to linger with you. That result is going to drag down your score, your overall score in a match, where all of where everything is part of a whole in a longer match. But when you're playing just duplicate pairs, it's just one result. It's 1-0, and it does not carry over to any of your other boards, so you don't worry about it. And Mike Lawrence talks about that in some of his writing. He said, "Look, he's like, you got to have a strong stomach. You got to be willing to go for your life every now and then. You're going to catch a bad distribution, and somebody is going to find a double, and it's going to be ugly. But you're not playing for money. You don't have to write anybody a big check. It's one bad board. You live with it and you move on, because that's part of the risk that you take. I think in some ways it's part of what people like about match points, right? It's a lot more exciting. I mean, what's more exciting? Sit around and watch your opponents play two hearts while you pass throughout, or get into the action. Get into the action and say, "Nah, I'm not selling out here." Right? Let's keep this thing going, right? And so then okay, so your partner bids two spades, and then they decide to compete to three hearts, right? We've gone on right here, right? So there are lots of good things that can happen. So maybe you make two spades. Maybe it goes down a trick, but it's better than letting him play two hearts. Maybe they take a push to three hearts, and they would have made two, but they can't make three, right? You got them a level too high, right? We're adding. This is part of the interest, right? We're adding a whole lot more into the decision making process, and where we don't just have these static results. I mean, we're not looking at a board getting played 8 or 9 times around the room, and it's, oh look, it's 110, 110, 110, 110, 110. That's not as exciting. It's more exciting to create some action, right? Get some different results. Have any of you ever run across a pair playing a weak no trump before? So I played this for a while. I hardly ever do anymore. Haven't for a long time. It's not superior. It's not a better system than what we all play, 2/1 with a strong 15 to 17 no trump. But I will tell you, it's fun. Try playing an 11 to 14 no trump. Now you've got to craft the rest of your system around that, right? You've got to do different things. If you're inviting game as responder, you need more to invite opposite a weak no trump, right? You need more to force the game than you do opposite a strong no trump. But I'll tell you what it does do. It creates a lot of action at the table. It creates a totally different dynamic. And if you're playing against competition who doesn't know how to deal with a weak no trump, they get in when they shouldn't get in, and they get in trouble. You're like, oh, it's a weak no trump, I can get in. And they don't recognize all the dangers. So we talk about reasons to balance. And so one is you might actually have full opening values, and maybe the hand actually does belong to you, right? So that could be this first hand here. Your side could have the balance of power. So it really is your hand, and it doesn't matter that the opponents happen to have opened the hand before you got a chance to. Or number 2, you want to compete for a part score on a hand where probably nobody has a game, and that's this situation over here, right? And what you're going for is a possible plus or the smallest possible minus score, right? That's your aim when you balance in that situation. And then this situation here, this is that reopening double, that serves a competitive purpose, but what it also does is it protects partner if your partner has what we call the penalty pass. The opponent's overcalled the suit that your partner was long and strong in, and the opponents have just gotten into a hornet's nest here. So, and if they do that, you want to make sure that you can double them. But as we know, a direct double over here on that kind of auction is a penalty because it's negative, so it's never going to get left in, right? So we've got to go down a different path if we actually do want to